if online GP appointments are a good idea. 0207 862 2222 is the number. Now, a record 1 in 20 appointments in England in August involved an online video chat with a doctor. At the same time, the percentage of face-to-face consultations dropped to their lowest level in more than 2 years, although they do still make up 2/3 of all appointments. Now, doctors say that online consultations are often more convenient for patients, but could the distance actually be maybe putting us at risk? Marvyn, how do you feel about online appointments?
I actually agree with it. I think there's some things that you want to engage with your GP on that require you to be in person if they're doing in-person examinations that require them to physically review your actual body. But for some things that are conversations, that are updates, that are assessments that can be done verbally, 100% it makes perfect sense. It's actually significantly more efficient. The other thing is that the NHS has moved into a strategy of what they call multidisciplinary teams, which is you don't just see one person in the GP office. There are multiple skill sets that are specialists in particular areas that allow you to understand exactly what's going on for you. That is, for me, it's been more detailed. So my relationship with my GP has increased because I'm getting better advice from actual experts.
Well, that's interesting, because my experience of that is I get dotted around different people every time I go, and I actually don't know who my designated GP is, if in fact I've got one. Belinda, how do you feel about online appointments?
I think in certain circumstances it would be very welcome, but hopefully it won't become the norm. I think taxpayers get not enough bang for their buck already with the NHS. I know there are millions who are waiting for a GP appointment and they have to wait for 2 weeks, so something needs to be addressed. But the lazy option and a dilution of quality of service is to go, oh, let's just do it online. I think we need to fight against that. The old-fashioned GP service, my grandfather was a doctor, a family doctor, and his patients were part of his family, and he knew the children all their lives, and that connection with your GP, so you don't have to repeat perhaps personal or intimate things going on in your body to random different strange doctors all the time. I think we need to focus on improving quality of care. The amount of doctor places that are capped in the UK at the moment, so medical students can't even train to be doctors, to increase the supply so we can have more face-to-face, is an absolute scandal. There's only about 7,500 British students who are allowed to study medicine. That needs to be addressed, and we need to start investing in training more doctors so people have more face-to-face, not less, and put them online. And the elderly, they're not as techy as you think.
Where this important approach is actually falling down is that we're not assessing the psychological safety that people don't feel when they have a consistent GP. And I think actually letting people understand what the team is, who the team is, and actually making that a face of a GP, rather than believing the old way, which is one person has all the information, and even though they may not be experts, they seem to feel that's the best.
I can completely see the benefit of having experts in different fields, but then, of course, if you have the same family GP that knows all your history and knows your family history as well, maybe they'll clock on to things that an expert potentially wouldn't. I mean, there's benefits against both of them. That's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about here, though, is online appointments. Are you happy to see your GP not face-to-face, but through a sort of video link? Gillian from Essex, you're up first.
Thank you, Storm. My issue with online and telephone consultations is confidentiality issues. I had an issue with a doctor, which I had a whole day appointment yesterday. Now, I am retired, so it was easy for me to take that call. But if I was at work, it would be difficult, and the confidentiality issues concern me.
I see. So if you're not at home or in a private place and you're having to have a call with your GP, maybe other people would overhear some ailments. I mean, yeah, and I suppose
is my concern.
That could get embarrassing. But if you were ill enough to need to speak to a doctor, wouldn't you probably be at home anyway?
Well, no. Sometimes things are minor and then you need to speak to a GP about them. And so even small things, you need to be in a private place. It's the confidentiality issues that annoy me.
I do take your or worry you. I do totally take your point on that, and I suppose that would be completely eradicated if the patient was allowed the choice as to whether they were to have a face-to-face appointment or a phone appointment or online appointment, and when they had that. But those choices are not available to people, and so people are having online appointments even when they don't want to. And is that a problem, Marvyn?
Well, I think at the discretion, you can actually still request it. And as far as I've known, whenever I felt like I needed to come in, I've been allowed allowed to come in and escalate that conversation. I think that's important. I think when you're talking about screening patients as a 1.0, that is a much better way, because there's things that they need to see or to hear.
If you have to have that conversation at work and you're like, well,
I think absolutely, but as far as I'm concerned, the same way you would make space and time to go and leave and actually physically go to a place to be seen, you would create that safe that space for you to go and actually have the conversation.
Somewhere that you felt comfortable.
It's just an adjustment, and I think there will always be a gap in terms of how people historically like to be seen versus what is actually the most efficient way, and actually modernising our healthcare system, which is super important.
Gillian, thank you for bringing the privacy thing up, because it's not something I would ordinarily think about. I would probably just share all my ailments with everyone. Problem shared is a problem halved. First, more of your calls on whether online GP appointments are a good idea. 0207 862 2222 is the number. One reason given for an increase in virtual appointments is that there's just not enough doctors around, and today the BBC have uncovered areas in England which have the most patients per GP, so the ones finding it the hardest to get hold of a GP appointment. If we can see some of those numbers, Thurrock, you're going to have 3,431 patients per GP. Leicester, not too far behind, 3,262. Blackburn with Darwin, Luton and Milton Keynes, sort of similar numbers, the 3,000 mark. Portsmouth, also 3,010 patients per GP. The place doing the best, or the places doing the best, is the Wirral and Stockport, 1,850 patients per GP, and that is the best. That still sounds quite a lot to me. How do you know 1,850 people individually? Poppy from London, how do you feel about online appointments?
Problem whatsoever. I had one yesterday.
What about our earlier caller's issue with the privacy element to it? Were you in a private place when you did it?
I'm restricted to bed full time, and I was lying in my bed in my living room in my house.
Well, then I imagine not having to go to your GP surgery would have made things a lot easier for you. Although
it's just so much easier, and I have my appointments quite regularly with my consultant on the phone as well. I don't need to go to the hospital to see him. We just have a chat.
But I wonder whether it would be better if you had a face-to-face appointment. Maybe if your doctor could come to you and still take your blood pressure to have a look. You know, they put the flashy light in your eyes. I don't know what they're doing when they do that, but apparently they're checking for other things. And just in case anything else is cropping up that maybe you haven't identified, that they could spot early.
Well, as somebody who's in bed with a chronic condition, I have multiple sclerosis and have been in bed with this chronic condition for many years. I do recognise when I've got something that isn't something to do with my MS. I recognise things like a cold. If I get spots all over me, I know it. But I mean, I've been restricted to bed for, 15, 20 years, so I kind of know where I'm going with it.
And also, if it's a long-term condition as well, your GPs presumably will be very aware of your condition and everything that goes along with that. Poppy, thank you very much for your call. Alex from Pembrokeshire, online appointments, are you keen on them?
Oh, morning, Storm.
Hi.
No, I'm not keen on them at all. I think it should be face-to-face with your doctor, because if you're that poorly, you can just make an appointment to see him, go in, he'll write the prescription, you pick it up from the chemist and you come home. Otherwise, if you phone and have a phone call, he might phone you at the end of the day. And if you live in the countryside like we do, the local chemist might not be open, the bus service may no longer exist. You might not have a friend or family to take you in.
I really appreciate your point.
You might have to pay a taxi.
Oh, yeah. And then you get there and it's closed anyway. I totally take your point that actually if they're squashing these appointments in at the end of the day and you're going to have to leave your house anyway to go to the pharmacy, why not just drop in at the GPs? But I suppose if, like our earlier caller, Poppy, who has a long-term condition, she finds it very difficult to leave the house. She's constrained to her bed. You can see that online appointments would be sort of favourable.
That could be quite dangerous because he's not able to actually see what the problem is, and what you sometimes verbalise isn't exactly what's going on.
But what if it's just a prescription renewal, and then you're avoiding going into petri dish of viruses and bacteria every time you sit in that waiting room at your GP's?
Well, surely the doctors should be able to come out. They've got associate doctors now to carry on with whatever they're supposed to be doing, whatever they're capable of doing.
I take your point, Alex.
My husband, a few weeks ago, paid £50 to get his ears cleared.
Yes.
That used to be done by the NHS. They no longer see to UTIs. That goes to the pharmacy. So I think people who go to their doctors are really poorly and need to be seen.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much for your call. Kimberly from Essex, what's your view on online appointments? It would mean that a GP could see more people and speak to more people.
Hi, good morning and congrats with the baby, darling.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm a transgender woman and I live in Thurrock. I saw the graphic you had up.
Yeah.
I'm in Thurrock.
Not good there.
Without my GP doing video chat and online chat and telephone chat, I would be lost. I get my HRT replacement therapy, which I'm on for life because of my GRS, over the phone or video chat. I've tried face-to-face, walking to my GP, which is a 30-minute walk, and I'm beaten up 3 times. So it's a lot. It's not very nice, darling. Here we go.
Okay, well, that's almost a debate in its own and an issue in its own. That should not be happening. You shouldn't.
Well, there you go.
You shouldn't struggle to get to the GPs in fear for your own physical safety. That's ridiculous, Kimberly. So I'm so sorry you have to face that. But wouldn't it be nice to see your GP? All the other things not considered in this, but wouldn't it be nice to see your GP just in case there's something else going on that they might pick up on? You know, maybe you've got a tiny rash you're not really that concerned about, not worried about, and they'll think, that's a sign of something else, or I don't know, but you definitely observe more face-to-face than you do over FaceTime, don't you?
It would be nice, but safety-wise, at the moment, it works for me.
Okay, Kimberly. That's a vote for online appointments in the most sad way possible. Kimberly, thank you very much for your call, and I'm really sorry you have to face that sort of thing. Jane from Yorkshire, I believe you're a retired nurse, so you've got a little bit of insight into this. Are face-to-face appointments worth anything? Can doctors really pick up on anything?
Well, yes, I think they can, and Dr. Hillary did mention that one morning on the Good Morning Britain, that it's the door on the hand on the door handle as a patient turns to see the doctor, and the doctor says, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" And the patient says, "Oh yes," and that's quite often the real reason they've gone in. Yes. And the other point is that the lesser doctors see patients, they're just going to de-skill. You've got young doctors coming in, you're talking about young doctors training, etc. Who are they training on?
That's a really...
if you're not seeing patients, how can you possibly diagnose somebody? And you can't diagnose totally over the phone. It's all right with a long-term illness and the doctor knows all about it. It's there on the notes. It's an ongoing thing.
Jane,
people develop things.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That is a bit of a concern if you've got young doctors and they're seeing a third less of patients. They're not upping their skills. Yeah,
absolutely. But as we can see by the numbers, there is no way that your GP is creating a bespoke relationship with 3,431 people. And as I said, that's why it's a psychological care. People feel better when they go in because it feels very personalised, but they're reading your scripts before you come in, they're updating themselves, and then they're taking care of you. If some of that can be done online, absolutely makes perfect sense in terms of efficiency, but clearly I think people want to feel safe, feel seen and connected to their GP, and that's something that we're going to have to look at.
I think it gives the government a free pass to underinvest and to de-skill and to stop, increasing training. I think it's a terrible path to go down. We just need more doctors.
Even if we expanded that cap now, it's still, 7 years before we'll actually see them in our GP surgery. So between right now, even if it changed right now, and to when we have enough GPs, we've got a 7-year problem on our hands, and maybe online appointments are the way to go. Evelyn from Birmingham, would you be happy to have one?
I'm very happy to have an appointment as long as it's not for back, major issues, because I had a major issue and I thought I had a wound problem going to the doctor, and when I got there, she said, lie on the bed. She then felt my womb and then went, hold on a moment, Then she checked my hip, my knee, my foot, and found out I had no pulse going to my leg, which means I needed a very urgent double bypass. And without going to the doctor, I would have never found that out.
Evelyn, you had no blood circulation going to one leg.
No blood circulation going to one leg. I had struggled walking to my doctor.
Well, no
literally,
wonder.
and when I got to the door, literally, I was at the doctor's door breathing terribly and said, "Oh, sorry, it's my wound," because I thought I was in that much pain. It was my wound. It wasn't. I needed a double bypass that urgently. They gave me one within 9 months. I was supposed to have it within 4 months, but things happened.
My goodness,
So,
Evelyn. Well, I'm delighted that you did get
sometimes
face-to-face
you need that.
appointment.
You need that appointment, and that's what I'll say. You need it for your wound, your back, and those urgent things. And people think that pain is just something normal. It's much worse.
I mean, I can't imagine a GP surgery saying somebody that needs investigation, they actually need a doctor's hands on you to investigate, physically touch and physically see things. They would ever give you a online appointment for that, but I could be wrong, but thank goodness they didn't, and you got a face-to-face appointment, and thank goodness you're still here. Evelyn, thank you very much. Rosie from Bedfordshire, you're up next. Have you ever had one of these phone consultations or online consultations?
No, I don't like it because my mom is 84 years old, and she rang to book an appointment, and it was a machine that was talking to her to go online. She hasn't got a computer. She rang me, and my Wi-Fi wasn't working. Virgin Media hasn't come to repair my thing, so I couldn't do appointment online.
But surely,
so I have
Rosie,
to keep on calling.
They were sympathetic to that. You did get an appointment. Please tell me you got an appointment for your mum.
Finally, I got an, because she's a dialysis patient. So finally, I got an appointment. But imagine if she couldn't get hold of me for me to keep on trying.
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone would say, even Marvyn, you would say online appointments only, or you know, telephone appointments only, because of course there are people that don't have the technology, that don't have the experience of that, and also people that just don't feel comfortable with it. Rosie, thank you very much for your call. Actually, thank you very much for all your calls on this. We are gonna